Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. And welcome to QI. Coming to you tonight from the other side. The hilly bourne whence no traveller returns, the darkling plain, the place we go when we are dead. But before we descend into darkness, it's time to meet the panel. The bucket-kicking Clive Anderson. The clog-popping Sean Locke. The mortal coil off-shuffling Andy Parsons. And our very own Alan pushing up the Davies. And tonight the buzzers are suitably dolorous. Clive goes. Sean goes. Andy goes. And Alan goes. So let's start with something terrifying. This is a marmot, a pot-bellied member of the squirrel family. It's about the size of a cat and squeaks loudly when anxious or alarmed.
Ritz, they're eating Ritz biscuits.
Yeah, they seem to be, don't they?
Oh,
Given the right conditions, it's a dangerous, a deadly, merciless killer of humans. How? Clive.
Lead piping in the billiard room. Are these the ones that live in the Gobi Desert?
They Mongolian and Russian steppes.
I've seen loads of these, and I did a railway journey for the BBC, all enough. They scurry around. None of them killed any humans in front of me while they're doing that. But
And yet they're more responsible for death than any other animal.
Do they get caught up in machinery somehow?
No, the Maxim or the marmot.
Is it to do with the Ritz crackers? They sort of spit on the Ritz crackers, put them all back into the packet.
Do you know, oddly, Andy, the spitting part is good. When they spit and cough, billions die. Well, millions.
are they carriers of TB like badgers or
Worse.
Plague.
Plague is the right answer.
They've got the plague.
They are the actual original animal source.
Not the
of-
rats.
No, they cough and spit onto the fleas,
Is
which
the
catch
reason-
the disease, which then goes to the rats, which then came to Europe and wiped out half the population of Europe in the 14th century.
The problem with them coughing is obviously the fact that they've got those dry crackers. Just give them a drink of water next to it, have the biscuit, little water, no coughing.
No problem.
Do you know why it's called bubonic? Do you know that?
Those big round things come up under your buboes.
The buboes. But the bubo itself actually comes from the Greek bubon, which is groin.
Groin.
One of the areas where you get a big swelling when you get the bubonic plague.
How often? Yeah, sorry.
Do I get a swelling? Not as often as I used to, I'm sorry.
Given that's all they've got to do is just paint that red cross on, they've not done a great job, have they?
What's wrong with that?
Well, it's well to the left, isn't it, there? That, you know, you'd have thought if all you've got to do all day is go around doing a red cross, you'd have more pride in your work.
You're
than
not
that.
hanging around doing it, though, are you? There's plague in here. I'll just do it.
Yeah, right. A really long stick they do.
You're just waiting for a marmot to come flying
Knock
out
on the
and
door
bite you
and say-
spit at you.
Anyway, yes, almost 1 million Britons fell victim to the Black Death, but what illness do British doctors now treat more than any other?
The widest disease in these sort of quizzes is normally dental caries, but I suppose dentists treat that
Rather than doctors, yes. This is doctors specifically.
Is it cancer?
Oh dear, no, it's not cancer. No.
Flu.
Nor is it flu.
Is it a little niggle that you're not quite sure what it is? But you think it'll be enough to keep you off work for the rest of the week?
3,100,000 people in Britain every year.
Pregnancy.
Pregnancy isn't a disease, Alan.
It would be if Alan got it.
I would be surprised.
I'll give you a clue then. It begins with D.
Death.
Doctors don't treat death, unfortunately.
Dermatitis.
Not deafness, not dermatitis.
Give us a second letter. It's going to be a vowel.
It sounds like.
Yes.
It sounds like, forgive me, Father, for I have sinned.
Dinned.
No. Confession. It sounds like confession. Death with a D.
Depression.
Thank you very much indeed.
Well done.
Between 7 and 10% of women suffer from depression and about 3 to 5% of men. This is what they call unipolar depression, i.e. not manic depression. If you're going to be depressed, you're luckier if you get manic depression than if you just get plain depression, because you get the upside of
I can
mania.
conquer the world.
That kind of feeling. Exactly.
But now you can't say manic depression, can you? You've got to say bipolar disorder now, haven't you? Isn't that right?
Actually, the best people on the subject, Kay Redfield Jamison in America, for example,
That's
has
a
written...
brilliant book, An Unquiet
The
Mind.
Unquiet Mind is a fantastic... She calls it manic depression or madness. She's seriously manic depressive, takes a lot of lithium. She's also a professor of psychiatry at Johns Hopkins University.
Do depressed people mind what you call them?
Generally speaking, not to be honest. I mean, one of the great advantages of certainly manic depression is a sense of humour. It kind of keeps you going because of the loony things you do when you're manic. There was one person who took apart a car, bit by bit, on a huge, laid out a sheet, took apart the engine, sort of did outlines around each part, numbered them, named them. Everything was fantastic. Then, of course, he got the mood swing and was depressed and kicked it all over. The whole thing went to pieces. And so no car, basically. Bits everywhere.
But that's bipolar depression. What about just generally feeling a bit miserable and sad about life? Does that count as depression?
It's arguably, of course, a very, very difficult condition to diagnose, and people who are cynical about it and think, oh, just walk it off, you know. There is, of course, some truth in that, in as much as exercise is shown to be incredibly helpful for depression.
Is that the theory with you know, you go into a chemist and you can only buy a certain amount of paracetamol because they're worried that you're going to take too much of it? You could always walk down the street, obviously, and then go to the next chemist and buy another lot. But are they hoping that that little walk will make you think, oh, actually, life's not that bad?
Or pass an off licence at a strip club.
Something to cheer you up, you
See
think.
someone fall in the canal.
Swimming with dolphins, that's apparently a very good treatment for depression.
Not if they reject you. Not if they go... That takes you to another level.
The problem is often the other way around is severe bruising because the dolphins get too interested in you. And because their penises are a foot long and S-shaped, you're in serious trouble.
And that's just the ladies.
But while on the subject of depression, what is the saddest song you know?
Otis Redding's sad song.
That's going to be
I
sad.
always thought something, that song, Labour used it, but D-Ring, things can only get better. Because if you're in a situation where things can only get better, you're seriously screwed up, aren't you?
Well, there is a song which has caused suicide.
Billie Holiday, isn't it?
Say it, you know it.
I know, but
she sang it.
I know,
She didn't
but
write
it's...
it sounds like a New Order.
Say that again?
Strange Fruit.
Not Strange Fruit. That is a great song, Strange Fruit. She said it. Gloomy Sunday.
Can I have
Well
my
done. Award
points
yourself
go
2
to-
points. Yeah.
Gloomy Sunday.
If you promise not to hurl yourself off the edge of the set, I will allow you to hear a little of Gloomy Sunday sung by Miss Billie Holiday.
Sunday is gloomy. Hours are slumberless.
You've always got the antidote.
I don't know what to do.
I have to say, I've just been looking at the scoreboard. At the moment, the audience is winning.
Yes.
Monday's supposed to be the most depressing day of the week. Imagine you'd had a Sunday like that and you had Monday look forward to.
No, well, this is a song written by one Resho Seres in 1933, a Hungarian, inspired by the end of a relationship. Became an instant hit, and so, flushed with success, he went to his girlfriend and suggested they get back together. A day later, she poisoned herself, leaving a 2-word suicide note. Gloomy Sunday.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 100 suicides, apparently, been linked to the song. The New York Times had this great big headline, hundreds of Hungarians kill themselves under the influence of a song. Soon Americans were joining them, and the ghoulish reputation of the Hungarian suicide song touched almost every country where it was played. Victims included teenagers and octogenarians. One man heard a beggar humming the song, immediately gave him all his possessions, jumped to his death off a bridge.
That's great busking, isn't it?
The composer himself ended it all by throwing himself from his apartment window in 1968 at the age of 70.
Well, that was a horrible mess, wasn't it, that? A 70-year-old hitting the pavement.
Why is that worse than anyone else?
Well, you know, a young person's got a bit of fat on them. There's something to cushion the splats, but this would just be bones and skin just drunk. Like a bag of crisps hitting the pavement. You don't do that at 70, that's not right.
There was one bloke, wasn't there? He was on the first floor, split up with his missus. She left him, went downstairs, walked out. He jumped out the window to commit suicide. He lands on her, she dies, he lives. But you think, great. And he went on, didn't he? There was a famous case that I know.
I think the word is result.
A lot of people kill themselves by throwing themselves off Beachy Head. And I mean,
It is very
there are
popular
dozens of other cliffs, but people, they're like lemmings, almost literally like lemmings. They want to just go somewhere famous to do it. So it's either the Northern Line or Beachy Head.
I went to Beach Head very early in the morning, right? Not
Just as the
not
sun
to
was
commit
rising?
suicide, no. I'd gone to a fishmonger's, which wasn't open, in Eastbourne. Funny enough, you'd think the fishmonger'd open early, it didn't open until 10. What's going on? Anyway, listen round.
Yes, thank you.
All right, Alfred, nice to see you in. So I thought I'd go out to Beachy Head, just see what it's like.
Yes.
And there was these two guys, sort of sentinels. One of them had a guitar, and the other one had a flute. And I was wandering along, and they sort of went, hi, hi, like this. And I went, what? I'm not cheerful.
Grumpy soul.
And eventually they sort of they were going, hi, and they sort of beckoned me over, and they said, everything all right? And I said, yeah, fine. And they said, you're not thinking of... Not exactly that, but they were there to prevent people.
Bless them.
They didn't
But they get this. This is. I said, well, how often are you here? They said, once a week. I said, oh, even better. Even better. I said, how long are you here for? They said, about an hour.
This man's Ceres, anyway. The BBC banned the song until the year 2002. It's only just been allowed to be played. That is how seriously people take this suicide song. Anyway, that's probably enough gloom. Let's play a game. Time for Killer Mushroom Roulette. You wonder what the skull and crossbones cards on your table were for?
Yeah.
I'm going to show you on screen 4 types of mushroom, numbered 1 to 4. All you're going to do is write down the number of the one you may safely eat. Is it 1, death cap, 2, peppery milk cap, 3, destroying angel, or 4, trumpet of death? One of them is safe to eat, highly nutritious and very pleasant. The others will kill you!
Can we try them all first?
You get one each.
Somebody told me there are very, very few killer mushrooms.
There are very few.
And we're so ludicrously scared
We
about
are.
these.
There are 3,500 species of mushrooms in the UK. About 100 are poisonous and only 15 of those are lethal.
One of them I'm sure I've seen in Carluccio's.
It's very possible.
So I've gone for that.
All right, so what have you written there?
I've written number 1.
So you think death cap number 1 you can eat?
Oh, the reason being, am I allowed to give a
Yes,
reason?
please do.
Is it looks a bit, I think, like a penis.
And you can safely eat a penis, can't you?
Well,
You can.
that wasn't going to be my logic, but yes.
Right. You've
Well,
gone
I'm afraid
for-
I've come for the same answer, I'm afraid, but I thought
Number
the
1.
trumpet of death looked like a penis, but there it is.
That's a worry, Clive.
What can I say?
What have you got there, Sean?
Number 1.
Number 1 as well.
I've gone for number 4.
Well, the 10 points go to Alan Davis. Very good. You all use the same kind of logic, knowing that the one that would sound deadly is probably good, but unfortunately you all went for the death cap, and in fact it's the trumpet of death that is the one. It's also got a black moral or a horn of plenty, and is delicious and nutty.
That wouldn't be on a menu. Trumpet of death omelette.
You're quite right, though. It's very, very rare. The last recorded death by mushroom in Britain is too long ago for anyone basically to be confident about it. They are pretty nasty. They'll destroy a liver and kidney, particularly the death cat and the destroying
Do you have to
angel.
eat a lot of them?
Quite a few, actually, yeah. But the thing is, there's no known antidote. The peppery milk cap is more likely to be gastric. You'll have a really bad time, but it can kill you if you have a lot of those. Despite its black colour, the trumpet of death is very tasty and goes particularly well with fish. Italians call it the poor man's truffle. What did the Nazis use trumpets of Jericho for?
Was it lift music?
It wasn't.
Did they come up with some foul weapon that was to bring down the walls of cities and towns and things? Yes,
No, dear. I'm afraid...
I kind of thought that was going to happen, but...
Joshua in the Bible, of course, brought down supposedly the walls of the city of Jericho using trumpet, though apparently archaeologists say Jericho had no walls, but never mind. So it was a pretty easy job. Who knows? No, this is the Ju-87. Does that help?
Junkers.
Junkers, absolutely. Known as
Aircraft.
particular
Is that
kind.
88.
Oh,
The
it is.
Stuka.
The Stuka.
Yes, the siren, the whistling
that's a
siren
bird,
when they
isn't it?
dive in.
The whistling sound. That's right. They had a...
Just to go back as a kid. No, but then the Stukas start coming.
Yeah. Do you want to hear them? It's that noise. That noise was a propeller driving a siren, just deliberately put on to scare the bejesus.
Screaming siren.
That's right. They called it the Trumpet of Jericho, yeah. And it destroyed more shipping and tanks than any other aircraft in the whole World War II, including kamikaze pilots. It was extremely successful, except when it was up against fighters and sent them over to the Battle of Britain to try and bomb airstrips. But the old Hurricanes and Spits were far too nimble, and they got 30 done in one day, I think. Well, the Americans did the same by using Wagner in their helicopters. Do they still?
They still play loud, extremely loud rock music. To
I've
terrify
noticed
the
that in their
opposition.
bedrooms.
They play it to themselves in the tank during the Iraq War.
I mean, you just want to go and say, I tell you what, lovely army, very nice vehicles and things. Do you have any grown-ups anywhere? People who get calm
charge of you.
and don't shout and don't think it's clever to wear sunglasses if you're a general. Ugh.
Of all the objections to warfare, it's the use of sunglasses.
They're trying to be
Yeah.
like pattern. They think it's sexy and cool. If you
it's from
think
films,
you're sexy
isn't
and cool, you're just going to
What
be a
about
ghastly
that general
tactician.
who said to the troops he got it all wrong? He was like he was trying to get in with the kids. And he said when the order's given to attack, it's hammer time. And they all looked at him. So he said it again, more serious. It's hammer time.
Well, he thought they'd put on like big balloony trousers. And go,
Can't touch it.
"Get this."
Right next to the ruins of Jericho, as it happens, there is more death than diving. What lives in the Dead Sea?
Not much.
Isn't there a fish that lives in it?
It's really stingy.
fish,
If you get it
no.
in your eyes, it really stings.
Yeah, or we would
There must be a nematode worm, because nematode worms live everywhere.
They seem to, don't they? No, it's not actually. You've avoided saying nothing, which would
Is
have
it a
got the big
rabbit?
raspberry.
It's rabbits always going like that.
And you just escaped. No, the fact there are small little things called extremophiles, which are almost like bacteria, but much, much older life form than bacteria.
They look quite tasty.
Absolutely piles. So, so what else do we know about the Dead Sea?
It's
What
below sea level.
the lowest place on Earth?
The lowest place in England is in Norfolk.
But that's not the Dead Sea, it's just dead boring.
The Fens.
The Fens aren't really in Norfolk.
Cambridgeshire.
Cambridgeshire more.
Talking about lowest exposed areas, I've just had a look at that picture.
Yeah.
What's he doing with his hands there?
He's strangling a rabbit.
That's an old euphemism.
More rabbits.
Just going over there to strangle a rabbit. So can you actually do that in the Dead Sea? You can lie around without...
And toss yourself off.
fantastic.
Yeah, it's fine. They got so many problems with the Palestinians. They go, have a wank. We don't mind.
The sea is supposed to be salty, not the jokes.
They send people there on the national health.
They do. Quite a lot of conditions it
Right.
supposedly helps. The other thing is, despite the myth, people do drown in the Dead Sea. If you face the wrong way, people can't turn themselves around. There's too much resistance from the water, apparently.
It's called natural selection, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you may be right. You do know that there are about 250 drownings of people in Britain each year, of which roughly a third are intentional. Bearing that in mind, can you tell me what's interesting about this sad little rodent?
It doesn't matter whether he's upside down or... He looks exactly the same.
You certainly...
No one cares.
Is this
if he
a-
falls on his back, nobody turns him round.
So is this a lemming?
And he looks like the devil's arsehole with his mouth.
certainly wouldn't want a blowjob off him, would you? The scrapey experience. It is a lemming. It's a Norway lemming.
They don't actually jump off cliffs.
They don't jump off.
It was invented by Disney or something.
Oh, dear me, it was not invented by Disney, no. There were two myths about it. One, that they commit mass suicide. The other, that it was Disney who invented them.
Ah, right.
In fact, they didn't. As early as 1908, in Artemis Children's Encyclopedia, he talks about them throwing themselves off cliffs into
They
the
have
water.
done it. It was when their migratory path hit a cliff.
They don't really migrate, but they're fantastic breeders. A mother can produce 80 in a year, and when the population swells, they have to move off to find places where they can eat.
So what are we saying? They do throw themselves off cliffs or they don't throw
They don't.
themselves?
They don't. at
They
all.
don't.
The Disney film, you're quite right, was completely faked. I mean, they made this film called White Wilderness. They had to bus in lemmings from thousands.
And they tossed them off the cliffs, did they?
They did. Well,
yes.
they sort of dropped them in front of camera in a close-up, a rather pathetic attempt to do it. They're not any more suicidal than any other animal.
He's actually trying to do his impression of Einstein in that picture. That's what it is, there.
His tongue stuck on both of his teeth.
It's a rather sweet little tongue, don't you think? It's a little pretty pink tongue.
Watch out for the teeth, Stephen.
Yes, sir. Anyway, this delivers us damp but not downhearted into the valley of general ignorance. So fingers on trumpets, please. What was the curse of Tutankhamun?
You have to queue up for ages.
The one that's going to lose me another 10 points
Yes.
is that anybody interfering with his tomb would be forever cursed. So the mere fact of, you see, look, death to all who enter here. Yes.
The fact is, there is no curse, there never was. There's no inscription that even comes close to being a curse of Tutankhamun or of any Egyptian tomb ever.
It looks like Tiger Woods eating a cornetto.
Absolutely right. Lord Carnarvon, who
that's the one.
was one of the people with Howard Carter who first uncovered or excavated the tomb, died very, very soon afterwards from a shaving accident, probably an infected mosquito bite that he cut. And people thought, oh, it's cursed. There was one of the party that had excavated who died in about 1978, aged 93, and the headline was, Curse of Tutankhamun Strikes Again. Jane Loudon Webb wrote a novel called The Mummy in 1828 about a mummy coming to life and chasing those who had desecrated its tomb. But the fact is that thorough research has shown that only 6 died within the first decade of the opening, and Howard Carter, surely the number one target as the chief of it, lived for another 17 years.
None of these superstitions should be worried about. Touch wood.
Day. Now, the Great Fire of London destroyed 13,200 houses, 87 churches, 44 livery halls, and over 4/5 of the city of London with a capital C. How many people died in that 5-day conflagration?
I think it's 4 people. It's some very low figure of...
I'm going to give you the points because
Yes.
it's 5 people.
5 people, oh, well.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Only 5 are recorded. The maid of the baker who started the fire, Paul Lowell, a Shoe Lane watchmaker, an old man who rescued a blanket from St. Paul's but succumbed to the smoke, and 2 others who fell into their cellars in an ill-fated attempt to recover their goods and chattels. The mayor, actually, Thomas Bloodworth, went back to bed on the first night saying a woman might piss it out. The previous Great Fire in 1212 killed 3,000 people. When does the nursery rhyme Ring-a-Ring-a-Roses date from?
Ring-a-ring-a-rose.
Whence? Yeah. Oh, sorry.
1102.
Wild stab in the dark.
Yeah.
Not correct,
Well-
I'm sorry to say.
The plague, the bubonic plague.
Oh, dear me, no, I'm afraid not. It's nothing to do with the plague or the Black Death at all. It's a complete misconception. Apart from anything else, this ring, supposedly supposed to be a ring of lesions. It doesn't happen. People don't sneeze when they have the plague.
Obviously. They do. It's the marmots sneeze on you. You told us that.
Is that not the reason why people say bless you when you sneeze?
No, that's because of the devil getting into you when you sneeze.
I thought it's because you had the plague.
No, it's
People
the
get quite
devil.
testy sometimes. They sneeze and you don't say
If you
bless
don't
you.
say bless you, yeah.
You didn't say bless you? Oh, f*** off.
That was one hell of a garden party at Buckingham Palace, wasn't it? It really was. You made quite a name for yourself. It's a very late 18th century American song, first recorded in 1881, but apparently written earlier, has nothing to do with the play whatsoever. So, what did the man who invented lateral thinking suggest as a solution to solve the Middle East conflict?
Is that Edward de Bono in the middle?
Edward de Bono
lateral thinking?
is the man. He invented lateral thinking.
Have a game of football, sort it out that way.
They could play in the old Gaza Strip, couldn't they?
I'll give you 50 points if you get this, because it's so peculiar.
Thinking laterally.
Well, laterally. I mean, so
They're playing
lateral, it's
Monopoly.
off the scale. It's weirder than that.
They all go to the Dead Sea, right?
Yeah.
They flip over the wrong way, and whoever can turn over quickest wins.
No, this man, this premier thinker of our time, Edward de Bono, suggested sending Marmite to the Middle East. He reasoned thus, and I use the word reason quite loosely, he reasoned that on both sides of the conflict there was a lot of unleavened bread being eaten, and unleavened bread is a shortage of zinc, and a lack of zinc causes aggression. So he planned, as the easiest way, as he saw it, to restore the zinc levels to both sides was to send them lots of Marmite, which is rich in the
But
stuff.
the whole point about Marmite, they advertise on both sides. Some people love it and some people hate it. See them solve the problem, then they have wars between the pro-Marmiters and the anti-Marmiters. Back to war for again.
Didn't think it through, did he?
Where do you stand on Bovril? Do you like it?
I never stand on Bovril.
I thought-
It's a stupid thing to do. But I quite like the taste of it, I have to say.
And did he put that forward as a serious suggestion, or was it one of those days where he just really was taking the day off?
5 to 5 on a Friday.
Yeah.
I see.
All right, here's one.
Yes. This was a Foreign Office committee he was talking to. It wasn't just something he said in the pub. He was on a think tank, and he was reporting to the Foreign Office, and they were listening to him. Marmite.
They should have done it in Ulster.
Yes.
Should have made that the homeland for the Jews. Just for fun.
Like a sort of problem theme park, all in one place.
Well, I think we've come to the end. That leaves the divertissement of the score. We're going to start with tonight's, I'm afraid, didn't do quite as well as anybody else, sir. And it's Clive Anderson with minus 24 points.
Oh, at least. I got many more than that.
And in a very creditable third place, Alan Davis with minus 15. Then comes Sean with minus 8.
Thank you.
With a staggering 0, it's Andy Parsons. But that means tonight's shock winner with 2 points is the audience. Never happened before. Well, on that bombshell, the time has come to leave the shadow of the Valley of Death behind us. Thank you to Clive, Andy, Sean and Alan. And I leave you with this thought, courtesy of the great Johnny Carson. For 3 days after death, hair and fingernails continue to grow, but phone calls taper off. So there's an upside. Do be careful out there. Congratulations.
Can you just get a move on? It's really hot in this thing.
Now you know what they mean by global warming.
Yeah. Very
Lead Balloon, a new comedy, next on BBC4.